This programme is sponsored by Ava Media. Brilliant quality for a great price. Welcome to the first of 3 testing roundups of IFMC. Today we're going to be looking back at what kicked off in Jerez, talk to the teams and drivers about how they felt testing went for them, and also discuss their reaction to Team Oscar pulling out and their Comet engine. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Here we go.
Coming up on today's roundup, we're going to be looking back at what happened during the 4 days of Jerez, who was quickest in all of them, and what developments happened. We're also going to be previewing the Estoril track, which is the second testing venue for the drivers, see what challenges are available, as it is a completely different track to Jerez. We'll also be interviewing the drivers as well about what happened in testing for them, and we'll also get their reactions to Team Oscar and their reaction to their Comet engine, whether it was a positive reaction or a negative reaction to the engine. So welcome to the first of 3 testing roundups for IFMC. A lot of things kicked off in Jerez with Summit dominating the news throughout. We had a lot of development and it gave us a first chance to see, a glimpse to see what the cars looked like when they took off to the track. So without further ado, let's have a look at a quick roundup for Jerez for those of you who did not see the live streams over on Twitch. So let's have a look what kicked off. Day 1 of the first IFMC test was underway. There was no footage to show you because of huge technical problems during the live stream, but what we can tell is that Mark Webber was the first fastest man in IFMC in front of the Etiads of Valtteri Bottas and Stoffel van Dorn. Mark Webber's teammate for that day, Jacques Villeneuve, could only manage 6th. Lewis Hamilton had a very impressive session and was able to get his Thomas Cook Sport to 4th, whilst Duran had an impressive session in the SIC, managing to get into 5th position. Day 2 saw Juan Pablo Montoya and Fernando Alonso take to their cars for the first time in IFMC. The track was wet for testing, which was the first time in IFMC history, and we saw a lot of mistakes down at turn 5. The most notable that we got was Sergei Sirotkin, who due to this picture made the same mistake by aquaplaning off due to standing water. At the end of the session though, it was the Oscars again at the top of the teaming sheets, but it was Juan Pablo Montoya who was the quickest out of all of them by over a second due to changeable conditions. The Etiads had some good pace in the wet towards the beginning, but as the track started to dry a little bit, they struggled, and it didn't help when Alonso got held up by a couple of cars on his last lap. The Etiads could only manage 4th, Alonso 4th, and Van Dorn 5th. Jacques Villeneuve was an impressive 2nd thanks to the wet conditions, and Pascal Wehrlein with some brilliant pace in the AMP, clearly showing they have some good pace in the wet, was able to get into 3rd. Day 3 saw Juan Pablo Montoya once again at the top of the timing sheets in the dry session, but this time he was only 700ths in front of Fernando Alonso, whilst Webber and Bottas battled for 3rd, as Webber took the initiative of Bottas. Lewis Hamilton struggled on his 2nd day in the car and could only manage 7th behind Pascal Wehrlein's AMP and Salvador Duran's SIC, who once again managed to get into the top 5. Salvador showing he has some brilliant pace. Day 4 saw a new team join the track in Orange Racing as a result of Team Oscar pulling out. More news on that later. As a result of that, as of Team Oscar being the favourites, now they've pulled out, Etihad were now the favourites, and they didn't disappoint. Fernando Alonso topped the timing sheets by only under a tenth in front of Valtteri Bottas, his teammate. Lewis Hamilton took advantage of Oscar pulling out and managed to get his Thomas Cook car to third, while Pascal Wehrlein managed fourth.
I think we've done a lot of good things from what we've seen. Fernando had a good performance out there, especially on day 4. Both of Fernando and Valtteri had a good session on Monday, showing some good pace. BMW engine, quite consistent with its straight line speed, but also as we've got some good reliability. I think the chassis has done quite a good job, and Stoffel, this week has also signed a deal with one of the GP2 teams, so he'll be getting some consistent driving over them when that starts, and done a really good showing for us. So signs are good for us at the moment. A few things obviously were questionable, especially our pace in the wet, but we'll look to advance on that as we go to Estoril.
I think it started alright on the first day. I think I got 4th from Hamilton on the first day. Second and third day were a bit lower down, but the final day I got 3rd with Hamilton. I think Sainz got 8th or something. But Sainz is a bit of a disappointment, but he'll bounce back and hopefully we'll get back up quicker in Estoril, and hopefully we can sustain this top 3 finish for the rest of the season. I'm happy with 3rd place.
I think it's very early days to say that we are even a title contender. I think one weekend, we might just be suited to Jerez, we might be suited to corners, we might go to other tracks and you might see AMP are really good in straight line and might have an overall package there more than us. You've got the Thomas Cook, obviously Battle of the Airlines there. They could have a decent package, with Hamilton of course being a fantastic driver. Orange have just joined in. There are some good teams within the lineup, great drivers of course. I wouldn't like to pinpoint someone at this current moment. Once we get through maybe the second test, we'll then start to pinpoint who we have dangers, and we'll look to see how we can counteract their styles and whatnot. But I don't really think it's fair to say one driver or one team's better than another at such an early stage, and even to be so fair to put ourselves on a pedestal.
Etihad looked very competitive, but I think a lot of people say don't look into everything in testing, but they were like half a second in front of me in testing, I believe, and I was 3 tenths clear of the other guy. But they've got 2 very good drivers, a very good car, very good team owner. I think that they're obviously going, since Oscar's left, they go into the season as favourites, and I think there's a battle for 3rd. We're just in behind. I think the battle for 5th, between 4th and 11th, I think, in the final day, were covered by 3 tenths. It was really close, so there could be a very good battle for the final space on the podium.
So there you go, that's what happened during the 4 days of Jerez, and it ended up after day 3 with Team Oscar pulling out, along with Juan Pablo Montoya, Jacques Villeneuve and Mark Webber. So why exactly did they pull out? Well, we asked Oliver Glazebrook, the team boss of Etihad Racing, and Robert Hunter, the team boss of Thomas Cook Sport, their reactions to his departure, along with their Comet engine. Listen up folks, and then you can make the judgments down in the comment section below, I should say. After dominating the first 3 days of testing with Mark Webber and Juan Pablo Montoya, Team Oscar pulled out of the series, and along came Orange Racing. The reason for their departure was because of a complaint from several teams about their engine. It had dominated Jerez. Oscar used the custom engine, which they called the Comet engine. The teams felt that it was unfair that he was able to get to the front very quickly after 2 months of development, and he was able to pay the engine cheaply than the rest of the field using customer engines. The teams felt that custom engines should have been developed more so they could get to the front a little slower than what they should do. They took advantage of this by backing their statement up with a McLaren from 2015 in Formula 1, stating that when they brought Honda in, they didn't straight away go to the front, they had to develop their engine because they were way at the back and having reliability problems. They're still developing this engine to the day. One of the main teams that had a problem with this was Etihad Racing, and Oliver Glazebrook had a lot to say when I interviewed him the other day.
I feel like the engine was a little bit too advanced for the way that it's gone about. The fact is, the engine has only just been introduced. The rules were a little bit misleading and a little bit misguided, in my opinion. I feel like it was a little bit overpowered in its sense that you could have such a high amount of power and reliability in an engine with a company that weren't exactly well known as the likes of, say, Porsche, Lamborghini, Audi, etc. I feel like the bigger companies would have been able to provide a better package than they were. The fact they left, I think, is their own decision. We never at any point asked them or demanded them to leave. That was Joshua Anderson's own decision and the team's decision. And obviously a new team has come in Orange Racing. So, the league will continue with or without him. And that was his choice at the end of the day. We had nothing to do with it. Well, we initially would have liked for them to have gone to a mainline production company, either say Audi or whatever team was available and wanted to offer them, and then they would go into the system where we would all go to the big companies and try and get them to provide us with a good enough car. For some reason, Joshua Anderson didn't feel like that was necessary, whether or not he felt he didn't think he could win the season or didn't want to take part unless it was his own way. I don't know, it's not my place to know. We was more than willing to have him, and I wanted to have competition. The more drivers you have, the better. More team, the more integration we have. Between the bosses is good. We've all got to be friends at the end of the day, because if we're not, the league isn't going to run smoothly, and it's going to be a lot of drama going on. Nobody particularly likes drama, but we would have liked to have seen him stay. It's sad that someone has had to leave so early, but it's a good thing that we've been able to iron out these issues so early on in testing, rather than it come to, say, third or fourth race where the championship has already been affected by it. At least it's nice and early, and the people who run the league can deal with the situation according to how they feel necessary.
I left my opinion pretty much. I think I left it to myself, if I'm honest with you. I didn't really want to get involved in it, but if I want to say it, I found it a bit unfair that he made a custom engine and it came in straight to be top. That's my opinion. That still is my opinion. That's not changed.
What we can say is what's happened has happened, and what's happened is Orange Racing have now joined the series and Oscar are out. In the words of Oliver Glazebrook, the sport will continue even with or without him. We hope Josh for the rest of his future, and hope that he does well in league racing in the future. Just to let you know, I'm still his friend. So there you go, that's their reaction to Team Oscar pulling out of the series, and along come Orange Racing taking their vacant roles. Now, we're nearly coming to the end of this show, but before we go, let's just show you what's going to happen in Estoril. That's the next testing venue for the drivers, and it's a completely different track to Jerez. So, let's see what it's like over at the Circuito do Estoril circuit. The Circuito do Estoril circuit. It's a classic track that has hosted many Formula 1 races over the years and has produced some classic races, most notably the one in 1985 in pouring conditions when Ayrton Senna took his first ever Formula 1 win round this track. It's also played host to the 1984 race, which saw Niki Lauda win the World Championship by just half a point from Alain Prost. The layout over the years has changed a lot during the years, but for the benefit for this second test, we'll be using the track configuration that Formula 1 used between the years of 1994 to 1996. Unlike Jerez, which was mainly a corner circuit, the Circuito do Estoril is mainly a powerhouse track, consisting of a couple of long straights which the drivers will really test their top end speed. One of them is down the pit straight. The speed starts off at the middle of the last corner, and then at the end of turn 3 as you continue the speed through turn 1 and turn 2, as the pair of those corners are fast corners. The other one is after turn number 4, where you start the speed after that, go flat out through turn 5, and then carry the top end speed through that straight, and then before braking into turn number 6. A lot of chances to get some top end speed, and we'll really see which team has really benefited from straight line speed. Let's have a look at a lap of this Estoril track then, with the SIC Porsche of Nick Heifeld coming out of the last corner now, and now down the pit straight as he's about to start the lap roundabout now. Now coming down the straight now, into turn number 1, a tap off the acceleration, but keeping the speed still fast. Now flat out through turn 2, and then breaking it all the way down into turn number 3. Still trying to carry a bit more speed as you can through that corner, before slowing it all the way down into turn number 4, so then you can prepare for the very long back straight on this track. Now out of the corner now, picking up the speed, and now coming into turn 5, which is flat out. Now carry the speed through this back straight now, and then braking into turn number 6, still trying to carry the speed in the middle of this corner. And there you go, there's the speed. Now out of the corner now, approaching turn number 7, slowing it all the way down into this corner now, trying to make sure you don't go off the track here, and then flat out through turn number 8, and then through the tight and twisty turn 9 and 10. This really tests the steering out of these cars, and really tests how slow these cars can go without cutting out the power. Now flat out through turn number 11, and then braking through the penultimate corner, and then into the final corner, which you just use a tap of the brakes in the beginning, and then flat out all the way you go. So going around the final corner, it's a very long right-hander, but then eventually you're back down the pit straight next to that weird pit lane entrance, and that is a lap of the Suquito do Estoril circuit, a very interesting track for the drivers. So that just about does it then for the first round-up of the Season 1 testing period of IFMC. Next up is in Estoril, which is on during this weekend. In fact, the first day has actually already happened. So before we go, here are the testing schedules for Estoril. It's the same times, except it is for Estoril and different dates. So make sure you tune in to the IFMC Championship Twitch channel so you can keep up live with the series. But apart from that, that is just about it from this roundup. So thank you very much for watching. I've been JWF1. And I'll leave you with a little bit of a montage of Jerez just at the end of this video. Until then, bye from now. This program is sponsored by Ava Media. Brilliant quality for a great price.